Of course, being 4 minutes to 12, it's likely to be a late start in that in the case. There was talk of doing a 9 versus 9 for the women's fights, but because of the delays, it's unlikely it will happen. I believe the organisers have asked the male captains if they are able to, if they're willing, to put back the start a little bit of the men, so that will facilitate and give the possibility for the women to do 9 versus 9. Again, the larger mass battles are the crucial point of interest in the development of the women's categories. At the moment, they just have the 5 versus 5. Of course, at Battle of the Nations 2019 in Serbia, there was an all versus all, which was organised. It was an unofficial category, but it was to give women the opportunity to take part in a mass battle. And of course, a lot of people really, really want that. That's for a number of people the next step in the development of the women's categories. So, second round of the Hellions versus Kelpies. The Hellions, part of AC Gloucester. And the Kelpies have travelled some way to be here. And that's a good start by the Hellions, who have taken down the fighter early on. That's a nice movement, good vision. Slight lack of coordination, good aggression at the bottom of the screen there from the Kelpies fighters, but it has loosened up the Hellions fighter, who comes straight back. And I think they're going to have to watch out. There's some nice footwork at the top there of the screen, well held, but she is in quite a serious grapple there as it moves to the corner. As you have the Kelpies seem to be in some trouble now, but there is the looser Scottish fighter at the top, who is crossing the list slowly but surely, moves in, and the Hellions fighter has her covered. So again, Hellions with an advantage here. You have a Kelpies fighter who's wedged in to the list. And these fights are known to go quite on, and that has been called. So the marshal there calling that round. Fighters down have been called, and you'll be reporting the scores. So, as we understand, that should be the last of the women's 5 versus 5 fights. But the schedule of it did change. So I think this will be drawn to a close at the moment. Again, we will get word from the organisers as to what is coming up. And we don't have all of the teams. Sorry about this, just a message from the marshal now about when we're to resume. Okay, so as I'm understanding now from the marshals, just overhearing, it's likely there'll be a 20 to 30 minute break, but we'll get confirmation of that in just a moment. So if you bear with us just one moment, the schedule is being reviewed, and we will have a precise time for the tournament to recommence. So stay with us, and we'll have it called in just a moment. Okay, so the women's 9 versus 9 has been cancelled. Therefore, we will go straight into the men's categories. This will be in 25 minutes. So that is 12:30 UK time and 1:30 Central European time. So 25 minutes and we'll be back here. Don't go away. Fist. Okay, did you get that? Should we do it again? Okay, again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now you do it on your own, and I'll follow your actions. Okay. So just take down your fingers whenever you're ready, and I'll commentate on that. 4, 3, 2, 1. None. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3. Fuck's sake. 2, 1. 1. None. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. None. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, stop. White Company have gone straight into these Northern Wolves attacking Whale, though White Company do have some newer fighters with them this time. Some of their veterans are not present, and already that is the end of the first round. So White Company favourites for the tournament, doing what they do best. Well, you know, the Wolves there. Not taken down fairly quickly, but I think they'll need to regroup as they can do. They have plenty of experience in these tournaments, so we'd never count them out. It's a necessary readjustment. And of course, White Company dedicated a lot of their time in the preparation process today to their takedown maneuvers. A strict training regime. And it's starting to pay off already with that early victory. That was a very, very quick round, actually. So it's good to have you back with us. Those of you joining through the Buhurt League pages, we've had some technical issues this morning, but we are all back and ready to go now, as now the marshal calls for the second round of this fight between White Company and the Northern Wolves, and White Company already breaking through the lines of the Northern Wolves. This is good movement. You can see they're crashing into the... Although there is a skirmish in the middle, which is proves a nice takedown. Great move there on the side there. Huge strikes coming to the back of the fighters. Now White Company dominating this second round. That's a great leg sweep there. And this is very smooth work from White Company, who dominate the second round for a 2-0 victory with no fighters down. A big round of applause from the public. Although you can't see it from here, there are quite a number of people just on the far side, on the near side, of course, out of line of vision of the live stream. So we have the first fight in the men's categories goes to the White Company, and we will shortly be seeing Primus and Invicta, who get ready. Now you have a new fighter for Invicta, as you can see in the blue and red shield. That is Davide Rospi from Italy. And he, of course, is a long-time Taurus fighter.
Primus and Invicta to the list.
Of Italy's finest
Primus
teams.
and Invicta to the list.
So I'll probably catch up with David a bit later to see how long he's been with Invicta. Invicta themselves, of course, a team with a lot of fighter history, and they're no strangers to their opponent's Primus. And they will be captained by Barney. As we wait for the Primus team to get to the list. Taking some time. Conditions themselves are pretty good. It's a warm day, plenty of sunshine, and a little bit of wind as well, which the fighters will surely appreciate. The ground itself is marginally uneven, but it's a fairly negligible amount, so the conditions are pretty good. The list itself, as you can see, it does have the tabletop to the list, but it is not extremely strong. This is, of course, a last-minute addition. They can't afford to double up just yet on the list itself to support the tabletop. So it will come under some pressure. And the Primus team have come out in numbers.
Northern Wolves and Iska, prepare. Northern Wolves and Iska, prepare.
So there's the announcement. That's after this fight. will once again be the Northern Wolves, who we saw in red in the first round, and they will be fighting against Iska. The team was set up by one of the fighters with Primus. Again, some checks going into the Primus fighters. A little bit slow getting in, but the important thing is that they don't spend too much time between their rounds, otherwise they will still face sanctions. And of course, even though this is not a registered Buhurt League event, it is still subject to all HMB rules. And already there have been a couple of weapons which were disallowed. So, in spite of this being, let's call it a free tournament, it is still subject to all regulations which are used to an HMB. So we get underway with the first round of Primus in white against Invicta in the black and grey. And these two teams fairly evenly matched. And we'll be looking at also to see what the captain of the Primus team does. Last Castleton Cup was held here last, I think it was August. He caught the Most Valuable Fighter award. That was given to him for his vision, his movement, his control over it. I can see him just in the far part trying to get a leg sweep. And his opponent is holding on there, and that's a good takedown. Already the captain of Primus has taken down one of the Invicta fighters. So that's a promising start, and two of them go down at that point. And it's a nice charge coming in, but that's good vision from Marnie, the captain of Primus. Again, those charges, people have to be really careful. It's interesting to see how people are actually addressing them, because going straight into the list is going to prove fairly unproductive, or just crashing into the list. But if they apply certain pressure and points and attacks to the lower part of the body, going over for a hold, they're able to pull them back while they're off balance. So some good movement coming through. But of course, it is easily caught. And now you have all the clinches on the far side. So any breakaway will not mean they can move to a separate part of the list. And there's a good takedown there from the Primus fighter. Primus now more in control of this fight. This is good work from the captain. And as the first round goes to Primus. Oh, very good fight there. So again, or evenly matched than in the first fight. But these early fights are an opportunity for teams to really assess their opponents. And of course, as you can imagine, there haven't been any tournaments for some time. Training, of course, continues, but the real development goes on in the tournaments themselves. And in fact, these are useful for the teams so they could use them as training points. So when they do get together after the tournaments, they can look at the weaknesses, look at the strengths, capitalize on the strengths, and develop the weaknesses into strengths. for defense. And the Invicta fighter on the ground needs to be really careful there. And that's a great charge coming through. Big takedown on the far side of the list. This is great work from Primus. And that's another Invicta fighter taken down. As Primus gel very well in this round. And it would be difficult for them to come back at this point. As the last Invicta fighters are hoping to stay closer to the list. Some good teamwork happening from Primus as they choose their opponents carefully. They need to come from both sides, need to get in the way and try to get some trips. I think they're quite laboring these takedowns a little more than they should. So, again, the strikes come in, but against a big fighter like that or Invicta, not going to make too much difference. They need to pull them away from the list. Some great leg sweeps coming in from Primus. So now they need to have a bit more strategy in terms of their grappling. And that is called. So victory goes to Primus. And they started off much stronger in that round. A lot of teamwork going on with the actual grapples themselves. I think towards the end, they kind of lost that teamwork, which had given them the early takedowns. Of going sort of sandwiching in the fighters, one going more for leg sweeps and the other one working down the upper body strength.
Northern Wolves and Iska. Northern Wolves and Iska to the lists.
So we see the return of the Northern Wolves for this next fight. That will be against Iska. Wolves on the back of the defeat in the first fight. Company. Of course, White Company being the favourites.
White Company and ACG prepare.
You should have a picture of it. What are we on next? AC. Wait.
ACG prepare.
Yeah, ACG now, isn't it? What fight number are we on?
the Iska fighters coming down with hard blow. We've got some halberdiers, and a lot of them go crashing down. It's a little bit of disorganization among the ranks of both the teams, to be honest. But they pull it together now. Now that's an interesting strike that comes through. The leg going into the back of the leg of the Iska opponent. Fortunately, it didn't come to anything, but he did grapple on from behind. And the thing is, you also got to evaluate the size of the opponent. In that particular case, well, that's a good takedown. Well, this is good work from the Northern Wolves to come right back into it. Well, this could be interesting. They've got to be careful of the grounded fighters, however. When they manage to get away, there is a size difference here. And I can see that, yeah, as the Iska fighter has gone straight back to the list for support. But any sudden movement sideways could be dangerous for either of the fighters, and that's good work. And I think, in fact, they both went down, so they were all points touching the ground. So, first round, and it's the first draw of the day. Well, I think Iska having started so well, getting some really good takedowns, and I feel to some extent I wouldn't say wasted it, but they didn't capitalize on it, and they loosened up a little bit too much too quickly. Marshall calls for the start of the next round. The first round, of course, a draw, so they still have the full rounds to play for. So there'll be 3 rounds from this point. And that's an aggressive start there. Again, more crashing to the ground. That's impressive work from Iska. Nice movement coming in from the side. They're working those legs. And getting on. It's a great grapple there. Nice push out. Good forced error there from Iska. This is great coordination from them this time. Very aggressive fight from Iska. Well, very good work, good coordination, getting on the right sides of the opponents. The force down, very effective. So I suppose we'll quickly go into the next round. There won't be too much time taken. So that was a particularly fast round. Good movement from Iska. I think the Northern Wolves could have done a little better in terms of holding their positions. So some difficulty of one of the Northern Wolves to get into the list to start with. Well, I think Northern Wolves will have to stay a little bit closer together if they're to stand a chance against this very mobile Iska team. Although we did see mistakes made by Iska in the first round, Northern Wolves capitalised on it, and it came to a draw in that first round. The second round, of course, decisive victory for Iska. So the marshal calls the start of this next round. Iska, some good movement there. Already grapple in the middle between those two big fighters, and they've taken it to the list, and the helmets come off, so he'll be, of course, out. That didn't seem very safe at all. It came off extremely easily. Again, this is nice work from Iska. Getting good positions on. The charge is coming down. And there's some nice hits coming down. But Iska, I think, we've got good control of the fighters there, the opponents. And the fight has been called. So that was an impressive round by Iska. A few things which have gone missing, but one of the concerns, of course, is that helmet of the bigger fighter of the Northern Wolves. It just flew off. So have to do something about that. It just didn't seem safe at all. And we are getting underway with the next fight of the proceedings. White Company, as we saw before. And they will be up against Armour Combat Gloucester. Two teams who know each other very well. And this is ACG's first fight of the day. White Company already had that opportunity to get their bearings. Made short work of the Northern Wolves. Gloucester, however, they do have a lot of good strategy, and they can be very, very fast on the attack. So this will be a good challenge for White Company, and I think we'll see something really impressive from Armour Combat Gloucester. And I do have a very big club, and they've gone from strength to strength, really. So I think the captains have been requested. So I'm not entirely sure what the situation is there. But we'll find out soon enough. I think a moment has been requested sort of for some assistance to one of the fighters from the last round whose helmet came off. So it didn't seem to take a knock to the head. It might have just been fatigue. He did seem to be labouring his entrance into the list itself. And he seems pretty exhausted. And although it's a smaller tournament and an opportunity for newer fighters to get involved, of course, it's still at professional level. So there will be a break now, unfortunately. There'll be an ambulance on its way for the fighter on the far side of the list. So looks like we may be about 5 to 10 minutes. The fighter's been told to take their helmets off for the moment. Bear with us and we'll keep you updated. Just to remind any of you who just joined us again, we are waiting for an ambulance for one of the fighters. His helmet came off and it seemed to come off very easily. He stated that there was a blow after that, but it was not seen. I certainly didn't see it. The marshals, so they didn't see it either. And it seems that it might just be a graze from a gauntlet. But of course, in any case, he has to be checked out for this reason. So there'll be an ambulance to sit him on the way. The medics are here giving him assistance. So at the moment, again, should be about 10 minutes from now. So we'll be delayed slightly. bear with us. We'll keep updated on how things are going. Okay, well, I spoke too soon. So he seems to be okay. There's just some grazing to his head. So I don't think I really need to get an ambulance. He does have a bandage on it for the moment. It doesn't seem to be too bad. I think it's only a very mild graze, to be honest. However, you know, even if it was just done by a gauntlet, that's enough to do it. And this does mean, of course, that the teams of White Company and Armour Combat Gloucester will be preparing to fight in just a few moments. One thing the marshal is to check the actual leather of the attachment. It seemed to be safely attached, but there are questions about the leather itself. So just an update there of the injured fighter. It seems what happened was as his helmet popped off, which is still being checked out as to how exactly that happened. He was grappled from the rear side, and the axe just cut open the crown of his head. But anyway, we do move on to White Company versus ACG. So you can already see rapid movement of ACG running to the rear ranks of the White Company. This is good fighting from both teams, very evenly matched at the moment. There looks to be a weapon change there. And this is good work from Armour Combat Gloucester. However, they are being hunted down, and already you have an ACG fighter who's going down. There are two now down, and that's some good work. Oh, superb takedown from White Company. And the ACG speed has been their downfall. Now is all White Company hammering into the ACG fighters, who started off really well and are very well coordinated. And that is the end of the fight. So White Company have a clean sweep in that first round victory. Well, although it did finish 5 fighters to 0 at the end, you have to say that in the early stages of that, ACG had a good hold on White Company, and they were breaking right through their ranks. So the movement was there, coordination perhaps needed a little bit of work. I think they used a little bit too much movement towards the end there, leaving themselves exposed.
Iska and Primus prepare. Iska and Primus prepare.
So the marshal satisfied that the next round can get underway. And you can see the way that ACG are poised, that they're going to be looking for a rapid start again, and they go charging into White Company. And already there are 2 of them down. So that is a negative start for both teams there. And the marshal quite rightly downing the White Company fighters. Great movement from both teams, however, moving very rapidly in separate clinches. And one White Company fighter trying to get away to help his teammate. That's a good takedown there on the side. Some White Company were looking for, but ACG held on well. Well, certainly we'll be able to see more of that speed and coordination from ACG as the day goes on. Of course, the time to use as much of that strength and speed as possible is to be done against White Company for certain. Now we move on to two more rapid teams, and in terms of speed, I might actually give it to Iska, to be honest. We saw them earlier with the Northern Wolves demonstrating a lot of slick maneuverability, but it depends how they can coordinate themselves. Now, in that second round, White Company against Gloucester, Gloucester showed all of the speed, a lot of aggression, good strikes, and a little bit more of the coordination as well. And that they held on to take down two of the White Company fighters. So a good second round there from that point of view. But at this stage in the tournament where teams are more coordinated, they can read their opponents better.
Gloucester, Invicta, prepare. Gloucester and Invicta, prepare.
So once this fight gets underway, we will see ACG or Armoured Combat Gloucester once more. So we get underway, Primus versus Iska. And that's a solid start there from Iska, who tries down some fighters. There's good movement, however, from the Primus fighters who go charging into the Iska fighters. And it's just nice teamwork from Primus, managing to hit all the crucial places, and especially working on that big Iska fighter. And now looking for weak points in the armor there, hack down, and that's a takedown on the other side. I think the Iska fighter was a little bit unlucky to come down as well, but his feet were dragging. So this leaves Iska in a difficult position. He has 4 against 2. But again, it's at points like these, you can see the striking power of Primus is starting to wear down a bit. And they're going to have to really work and force these two big Iska fighters down. That's a great takedown, however. Good teamwork. Very, very smooth. And that's good work from Primus. Iska, however, they've got a lot more to give. So their defensive game is very strong. Lion Marshall's getting ready for the next round of Primus versus Iska. And a slightly more cautious start from both teams this time. And there's a big risk taken for that Iska fighter, but backs it up well. Big takedown. That's a huge slam. They're both going for the double takedown there. This is still fairly close, although Primus do have numbers. And now they will start to get to work on these fighters. And I think that was the fighters down. Again, it's still fairly close. And it looks like it stopped fight. Yeah, there was the double takedown there. But that was good work from Primus. A slower start from Iska, and I thought the actual breakaway move was interesting, where he darted through, but he knew exactly where he was going to counter that. So it's smart fighting. So we're now going to the next fight, which will be Armoured Combat Gloucester against Invicta. So more of the veteran teams of the United Kingdom. ACG, of course, headed by Jake Coles, who's been in this sport for a number of years. Iska are a well-travelled team. Invicta are a well-travelled team. And they've gone through a number of changes over the years. And they've created some really, really top fighters.
Come on, Gloucester!
So one team who is missing in the proceedings today, of course, is Three Towers, the relatively new team heading from Scotland. And in the last tournament in November in the United Kingdom, they made quite an impression. But they'll be absent today, sadly. Hopefully we'll be seeing more of them in the near future. Here we have a nice aggressive start from Invicta, who go straight in, but they are hounded by ACG. Gloucester fighters choosing their opponents carefully. There's some interesting positioning going from the Invicta fighters, perhaps a little bit loose. They need to close up a bit. And you can see there's just these gaps from the Invicta fighters. Now charges it in, and he gets way too loose there and puts himself in a dangerous position as none of his teammates can actually get to him, so he's out on his own there. That said, the Gloucester fighter comes in. They do a good switch. So that's nice movement there from Gloucester. Again, you have to admire the Gloucester running game. Good positions there, but that's a great takedown there for Invicta. So an ACG fighter down. And this is still pretty even. There's a good takedown, however. That's another Invicta fighter down. The kick comes in as he's met with his charge. Oh, it's a very nice hip toss. Doesn't quite make it somehow, and I'll never know how. The ACG fighter managed to stay on his feet. That was very impressive defensive work. But it had not worked this time. Invicta have another takedown. And now we see they have an advantage. And that is it. That is called. So that was a very, very entertaining round between Invicta and Armoured Combat Gloucester. And he saw the early advantage go to ACG. Well, clearly these teams are very evenly matched. And I think we're going to see quite an electric second round between these two. Of course, it's good to see the development of teams when they get stronger and stronger, so you get these much closer fights. Marshall ready for the next round of Invicta against Armoured Combat Gloucester. So, a more tentative start from Armoured Combat Gloucester. It's already some nice movement, and however, he's pounded right down into the corner, and that might prove costly. But there's a lot of aggression from these Invicta fighters who are getting stuck right in very, very close clinches. There's a double takedown there. So, they are some fighters grounded, some of them stuck to each other. There's a movement coming in. Again, the charge in came to nothing. What they need to do is go in from a lower attack, put the weapon over the helmet, and then take the fighter down. However, it has worked. Invicta now with a big advantage. So, the strikes coming down to the... that's a nice charge, but unfortunately, due to the size of these fighters, it's going to be very difficult to come in like that. ACG in all kinds of difficulty now. And that is close to the takedown, and there it is. Very, very impressive work from Invicta. Well matched, and there were some good charges at certain points. And I thought the grappling game seemed to be quite good from ACG. They were not, however, able to make that big an impact on this very strong Invicta team. Faster, but it just changes the choreography of the fight itself. It changes the way the makeup of the fight and the way it's structured. Big strikes coming in against White Company. So White Company going in for the grappling game. Well, that's a nice takedown. Clinical work, getting rid of that second and third Iska fighters. Superb fighting from White Company, going right in for the charge there, wrapping arms straight around them to pull them down, hacking away at them, and I will bring them down in fairly rapid succession if they can actually get the fighters off the list there who are holding on. And there's one White Company fighter who went down with that. But other than that, that was very nice work. The three fighters on that one side of the list taken down in rapid succession. So one of the Iska fighters slow to get his own space. Of course, he did come down very hard. And you saw, in fact, the speed that White Company adopt once they have that slight advantage, but they go much more for the clinching game. When they have the advantage of the numbers, then they go into a clinch plus a striker. It's good to see some new faces on the White Company team. Not to say there's anything wrong with the veterans, but it means it's a demonstration of the development of the team. And there's a big charge coming in from Iska, who are really going straight into White Company. There's a big takedown straight away. Very hard trip from the number 3 of White Company. The strikes are coming in straight away. 2 go down at the same time. Very sharp work from White Company. Not wasting any time whatsoever, getting straight into and really good teamwork, helping up their teammate. Wow. Very smooth work from White Company. Some very good takedowns. The strength of that leg sweep that came in and the middle. Oh, that just left the Iska, sent the Iska fighter flying. And after that, you can see how quickly they go to help their teammates. They do not waste any time whatsoever. It's been noticed that sometimes you get hesitant fighters, even when they have the advantage. So when you have the loose fighters, they hesitate a little bit. They try and choose their opponent where to go. Sometimes a little bit lethargic and make it over to their opponents. White Company do not waste any time whatsoever.
Northern Wolves and Invicta prepare. Northern Wolves and Invicta prepare.
So in just a few moments' time, we'll be getting underway with Primus and Armoured Combat Gloucester, 2 teams who put on an amazing show last year at the end of August. On the near side, do have a number of spectators here. Not a huge number, but some families have turned out in force. There's also good coverage and support from the local community as well. This is, of course, for some of the fighters, the first time they've fought with the list boards. And they seem to be adapting to it fairly well. One of the big questions before the implementation of this rule was, what would it change in terms of the structure of the fight? Would it end up making them faster? This was the idea, that there'll be more movement, more action, if you like, rather than gripping onto the list. once on the list itself, it does seem to make the takedowns a little bit more, well, certainly it requires more skill to pull them off. But in terms of how fast the fights go through, it doesn't make a huge difference. Some people find them, well, not exactly aesthetically pleasing, which is understandable. It is, of course, a spectator sport. It is not purely for the sportsmen and sportswomen themselves. But largely, people are in favour of them. So a few extra checks there. The head marshal not taking any risks with safety at this point, with that one helmet already coming loose. It's yet to ascertain whether that was because of very weak leather, which might be the case. And certainly the attachment was fine. The buckle was fine. It was checked. But in any case, now we get underway with Primus against ACG. Primus showing a bit more caution here, as well as ACG actually. They are not adopting the same rapid approach that they did in their previous fight. And still some nice movement there, looking for the openings. And that's a great takedown, very impressive there from Combat Gloucester. And that's an impressive takedown. Primus, a lot of strength coming through there. There's the charge, here it comes through. Goes straight against this again. A little bit of a waste of a movement, but they do have a good grip on that big fighter, which they will need if they can force them through. How about they're forced back? That's good evasive action from the Primus fighter. And now that Gloucester fighter in all kinds of difficulty. However, he's on the right side of the fighters. If the captain can manage to get that arm straight, and that's it. It's a nice takedown there, which leaves the Primus and Gloucester fighter still going. The two, of course, below them having gone out of the list already. And really at full stretch, these Primus fighters. And it's more of a run coming on, but he's careful to check his back. The Primus fighter in no hurry to get straight to him. So, again, fairly tense. The marshals and line marshals advised that should there be clinches which are inactive for 10 seconds, that means with no strikes and no clear movements, then of course they can be broken apart, as is stipulated in the rules of HMB Buhurt. So very close now. A lot of pressure being put on the fighters against the list. So what they need to do is pull them out. The problem is that it's a risk for the fighters as well. And there's a breakaway which has come through. Some good movement towards the team. The teammate, and that's a nice takedown that's come through from the Primus fighter. Primus with a big advantage now. So going into the middle, it will be an idea to try and get between them, separate them as they have done. But there's a lot of defensive work. And at this point, it's still fairly even. Primus, despite having the numbers advantage, they're labouring this a little bit too much, and you have to wonder if they're starting to tire. So we'll just split up. Okay, there's nice movement there from the captain of Primus, but great footwork. He's charged back, and it could be very difficult to get out of this because he's got fighters on the ground. It might make it difficult to get up and get out of that, but he has got out of it. He's moved over them, so he want to get away from them as quickly as possible. The Primus fighter, however, has gone to the other side, so we're still looking to use those grounded fighters as a point from which to push them. That's another attempt to take down, but some good evasive work from the ACG fighter. He does have seemingly more energy than that Primus fighter himself. And that's a nice move in there, and that's a good takedown, which means the round goes to Primus. Well, that was hard fought at the end there, and I think both teams really started to feel a lot of the tiredness start to set in. Again, the conditions themselves are still favourable for fights. There's some sun, a little bit of cloud cover, and a nice wind, nice breeze to keep them cool. But in any case, at this point, yeah, people will start to get tired. So I think with Primus, they've certainly got the strength to them. The speed, however, they need a bit more of. They have to dedicate themselves a little bit too much to it. Underway again, Gloucester against Primus. And Gloucester, I kind of think that I'd go for something a bit more aggressive at the start of this fight. That's not so much the case. And they've got some good pressure down on Gloucester. Primus now starting to get around Gloucester. They're reading into their game a little more carefully now. Two which are almost pushed out of the list. And they're really at 90 degrees then. That's a nice move, and there's some good communication going on between the fighters. But yet, the fighter's going down. Now the Gloucester fighter's got the upper hand on the Primus fighter. So two went down at the same time. Gloucester do have an advantage at this point. So taking Primus to a stretch there works to their advantage. A nice charge coming through the Gloucester fighters. That's a big sweep there. But the hip toss didn't quite work, so it ends up in a grapple. And I think this is going to go on for some time unless anything breaks. Again, fighters once more going to full stretch, but they need to be careful that they don't get taken down as well. Primus certainly have the strength to keep up. So, Primus really going through a full stretch to get to these Gloucester fighters. But again, the evasive action of the Gloucester fighters has been very, very accurate. So it's all close at the moment. But the captain breaking away from that. And not coming to anything. I think, again, a slow arrival is not going to help. That's a dangerous position to be in. But as they were both slow that time, so I think even the man chasing from Primus could have done a little bit better and capitalised on that, forcing the Gloucester fighter to make a decision prematurely as to where he put his energy. And again, this is one of the difficulties with the slow switches that some fighters adopt. So I think a break has been called. Well, that's a great takedown there. So that is down to 2 versus 1, which of course means they continue fighting. One of the Gloucester fighters has been put on his feet. I'm not sure why. What on earth is going on? Well, the Primus teammates don't seem happy about that at all. It doesn't seem entirely clear as to why, but I didn't see it. Maybe you got a better view than I did. More pressure coming down, but again, these Gloucester fighters are good at evasive action. However, it's now down to 2 versus 1. So Primus have an advantage here. Well, this is the ACG captain. You've got both captains still on their feet. But that's a good takedown there. And the Primus fighter allowed to stay up with a new ruling. So that is a good round. Very, very close between Primus and Armoured Combat Gloucester. And so we now have the Northern Wolves, excuse me, against Invicta. And on the back of that great victory against ACG, I think Invicta will still have a lot to say. They'll have a lot of fuel left in the tank. Northern Wolves still with a bit to prove. Well, there's still a lot of talent in their team.
Where is your drink? Okay, I am guessing you.
So we've got plenty more fights coming up after this. Still be going these for the next hour or so, depending on proceedings, of course. And generally, so far, the marshalling has been quite good. A couple of oversights here and there, but of course, nothing to criticise them or base open criticism on. That's already a big takedown from the Invicta fighter from Italy, Davide Rospi. Nice charges coming through. Now, Invicta getting stuck into these Northern Wolves. But that's a great takedown, however, from the Northern Wolves right back into it. Well, this is good work from both teams, and a lot closer than expected. It just goes to show that with something to prove, the Northern Wolves have come right back into it. And they're really being made to work this by the strong Northern Wolves team. So that's a good takedown in the corner. So the Invicta fighter will want to be getting straight back into it, but again is laboring the return. Starts to run through now. And that's a double takedown. Two have gone down in the corner. Leaving all the action in the knee corner to the camera here. And they are really hemmed in together. So this is going to be difficult to break out of. Marshall's checking to see if there is any inactivity. And there's still space to come down with strikes from the Falcon. Well, that's a nice breakaway. It's impressive. Big exertion of energy there. But it's impressive and it's paid off. Well, it's turning out to be a very close fight indeed. Still very aggressive despite being hemmed up in the corner. And you can see the Invicta fighters really struggling to get some of those strikes in. The headbutts coming through. Oh, that's a nice movement there. Prized him away. It's going to be difficult for the Wolves fighter, and they've both gone down. So this now becomes a battle of wits for these fighters in the corner. You can see with nothing to hold on to, they're looking for gaps in the legs, ways to trip them over. There's a lot of energy which is being exerted into it. So again, David Rospi looking for the opening, a way to unsettle the knees of the Northern Wolves fighter. And now they've got him in a difficult position. However, the Northern Wolves fighter gets his footing back. And that was very, very close. But that comes out therefore. Just one checking one thing. There's the check there, but that is another very, very close fight. Very impressive from the Northern Wolves. And wouldn't you know it, they're right back in it against Invicta, who had a really impressive victory against ACG earlier. And yes, they did get a victory in that round, but it went down to the last man. There will be a couple of substitutions there, but I think with the setup the Northern Wolves had then, they're on pretty good stead to continue in such a way. And as much as I hate to throw shade on anyone, it did seem that perhaps Invicta were a little low on energy, especially towards the end there. Of course, it's expected that everybody would be tired at this point. But there was just a little bit more tiredness that we could see coming through on the Invicta team. So let's see how they deal with that one. Of course, it's not uncommon for teams to get right back into it. Perhaps they've had that round which helps them to get their second win. One of the difficulties in this tournament is that there have been a number of pauses between fights and between rounds, which have been taking a little bit long, but in the absence of more qualified marshals, these things can happen, and it's better to be safe than sorry. It appears that fighters are being warned. More about that later.
Thank you. Not that I know who the teams are, I'm just curious.
It's not a yellow card was issued to an Invicta fighter for a late strike after the fight had been called. It's hit him in a prohibited area, so it should really be a yellow card rather than a warning. Of course, as a non-league event, it won't make too much difference. So a nice spread now. And there are two fighters who have gone down, one from Invicta, one for Northern Wolves. Well, this is good covering from the Northern Wolves, and that's an impressive takedown. Well, that's another takedown which has happened at the other side, and I believe, the Invicta fighter is observed by the marshal is okay to stand. That one, the charge is coming in. He's still quite even. That's a great takedown there. So Invicta now with a big advantage. He runs straight over to get in there as quickly as possible. That's a nice strike. He did strike after the fighter was down there, so there should also be a warning to the, I believe, number one Invicta fighter. So there have been a couple of late strikes from the Invicta fighters, and they will be warned about that. No cards will be issued, but It's twice in 2 rounds, that last strike there. I believe it was the number 1 fighter. The Northern Wolves fighter was clearly down already. And the marshals saw that it was a late strike. Again, you just have to be careful of these things. Was it a strong strike? No. But it was already there, and it was so low.
And Invicta, prepare. White Company and Invicta, prepare.
That said, we go to the next round of ISCA versus ACG.
White Company and Invicta, prepare.
So Invicta, with not much time to rest, they'll be in the fight after this against White Company.
Are you going?
Yeah, around their sections regards.
No.
So we start again. And the next fight, ISCA in green against ACG in the black and red. Already there. Fast start from both of them. Gloucester maybe holding back a bit. Does have a bit of energy there, but that's a great takedown. So Gloucester with an early advantage. And you've got 2 have gone down at the same time. A double takedown means that Gloucester still have the advantage there. A nice clinch at the back. Again, a little bit more urgency in the step of the ACG fighter to get to his teammate, but they need a bit more than that. 2 have gone down at the same time. I felt it was a little bit clumsy on the part of the ISCA, with all due respect. He could have held that one, but of course he was in a difficult position, so it's easy for me to say that. That's a nice takedown there. So ACG with a good victory there from the still very aggressive ISCA team. So looking for some faster changes, as they are a little bit slow. They have been a little bit slow today. Of course, in Buhurt League rules, there are penalties for taking time over it. That's the saying, yeah, I just had a word to the marshal to try and hurry things up a bit. The checks are taking a little bit of a long time. Yeah, I think it's one of these things where, quite simply, UK needs more certified marshals. I think with a solid team of marshals and these breaks, these pauses between fights, they're done with fairly rapidly. So we're getting underway with ISCA versus ACG again. Again, 2 very aggressive teams. They seem to be lapped onto each other. It's a great takedown, but they are both down. They really held on to that one. And that's one of their more rapid fighters. That's a great takedown Big moves up. This is nice work. A slightly wasted chance there against the Gloucester fighter. This could have been up in numbers there. Again, very imprecise striking there, it has to be said, but that's a good takedown anyway. And they need to move quickly in order to help their teammate here. So that's a good aggression, but again, that is quite a slow movement from their teammate. That's 3 against 1. Therefore, the round is stopped. Round victory there for Iska. Oh, much better work there from Iska. And they'll be happy with the result of that. Again, you see a lot of lack of precision in their striking. They've got the positions. They're going the right side of the fighters, but they're not getting the rapid strikes and precise strikes in enough as they should. And I think that sort of thing is going to cost them when they do have these advantages, the numbers. When they've got the positions on their opponents, they've got to capitalize them more carefully. So they're going to have to spend some time studying to see where there are areas in which they can reach. But it does mean that we go to a third round of Iska against ACG. Once again, very evenly matched. And again, some people noticing gaps in armour and loose armour. These checks should really be done by the marshals, but at least the teammates are there to notice these things. And once again, it's the need for more marshals to notice these things first off. But of course, it is safety first, so these adjustments have to be taken care of before the fights can proceed. So both these teams have a lot of support from people here. And there comes an early charge, and you can see down one way that's going to cost the Iska fighter. Great movement, however. It avoids that charge coming in. However, it's going to be quite difficult from this point. Very good teamwork from Gloucester, keep his teammate up there in the middle. It's very, very tense now. Team to get the first takedown will benefit from it, and I think that was a mistake on the part of the ACG fighter. There's a double takedown on both sides of the list, and that's a nice takedown now. So Iska now with the upper hand. Again, this is good movement. They have to get to their teammates rapidly. Faster movement coming from the Gloucester fighters. And it goes straight to the corner, but this is good position for Iska to be in. They've certainly got a size advantage here. And he's not lost a weapon. This is going to cost them badly. If Gloucester can capitalize on this, they will need to do it quickly. So some of them hooking onto the list. And now the bigger fighter choosing a halberd. And that might make a difference. So as long as they keep the strikes rapid, with the fighters held down, the Gloucester fighter managing to stay by the list. It's a very, very spirited fight. They're going to need to price him away from that and not use too much of their energy. In the meantime, what they need to do is stretch out a little bit and move back, keep hold of one of the legs, strike for the parts of the armor, which is not doing it. And unfortunately, at this point, the Iska fighter is wasting a lot of energy. He needs to move back, pull right into the leg. The other leg is locked at the moment. So he needs to move out. Still from that, you can't see from this angle, but his legs are locked. So at this point, with one fighter locking the legs, and unfortunately he's broken away. So that is quite a waste for Iska. Gloucester managing to hold on to this. So this is good movement. Going right into the fighters. Great evasive movement from the Gloucester fighters. Well, there's a lot happening now in the corner. The strikes coming in from the halberdier, but they're going to need to prize the Gloucester fighters away. If they are to get a positive move from this, and there's a lot of weight coming down. It looks like they'll both go down together, which makes it 2 against 1. So the fight is still very much alive. And there's a takedown. So it means that Iska are the victors of this fight. Well, superb action from both teams there. And these fights just get closer and closer. But Armoured Combat Gloucester fought so well and demonstrated a lot of skill. Iska, however, managing to pull through and getting their teamwork together to pull a victory out of that, which is really impressive on their part.
No, we just want to check those four weapons.
Oh, check them.
Yeah,
Right,
both of
sorry.
them were super late. Yeah. Ali's here. Ali's here. I'm here. Yep.
So this next fight will be White Company and Invicta. White Company ready to go. Invicta nowhere to be seen as it is. They're just coming in now. And more stringent checks from the marshal. So it seems there are some substitute weapons being checked at the moment for White Company.
Okay, come here. Hey, is this the change?
Yeah. You've got to put it in his wallet. You need to ask him to put it in his wallet.
I got turned into a cookie and a cupcake.
What you got there?
You got Daddy's measuring tape, haven't you?
Yep.
So just a little bit of deliberation with the marshals before getting started. Remember, the marshals, of course, has been in action every single round, so it does get tiring for them.
No.
Do you know who's chair?
So we have the big Invicta team who will be against White Company here. White Company looking to get as close as possible, but they do favour those clinches. That's two down in quick succession, and you can see the difference it makes getting straight into the remaining opponents, running immediately over, not wasting any time at all. The difference that makes is vital. So now you can see the way that they team. You've got one holding in the clinch, the other striking, and there it is. First round victory to White Company. Extremely well organized and gelled team that, again, simply do not waste any time whatsoever. They've got great peripheral vision. Victor, I have to adopt a better strategy of staying together with it. Of course, White Company will always be grapplers, so they'll always want to prize the fighters apart, move them away from each other, move them away from the list. So I think Invicta are going to be stronger together. They do have a height advantage, most of them anyway. They're big fighters, and they have some very strong strikes, big kicks. I think if they can keep White Company at a distance by using those kicks and those big strikes, then they'll find it easier to fend them off.
Reflection off to a 10.
To the second round now. You can see the White Company keeping a little bit closer together. The runners in the middle. They're not waiting around to size each other up. A very good switch that came over. This is actually better from Invicta. And I think they've actually got that fourth point, which means I think it's quite distracting. It seemed that one of the teammates was shouting stop at a certain point. And that's a helmet which has come off, so that's very dangerous. But again, I don't think that was the security of the helmet itself, but it was the power of which it was being pulled off. So now I have White Company with 2 fighters down. And 3 fighters down Invicta. So yeah, I didn't get to see so much of that from one side. I don't know if it was blocking my view. But yeah, it seemed to be a lot closer from Invicta there. Again, the idea of keeping them at a distance, and they did hold on to White Company fighters when they were there. So Primus now will face Northern Wolves, who have really come back into this tournament after a brief start against White Company. They've simply got better and better as the tournament has gone on. And Primus, it'll be interesting to see how they come back into this. And again, not a point of criticism, but we couldn't help but notice they seemed a little bit drained of their energy in the last fight they had.
You're giving up the microphone.
So we get underway with Primus versus Northern Wolves. There's some careful movement from the Northern Wolves, and I think that's a good takedown, however. That said, now you can start to see how Primus are gelling together and taking down the Northern Wolves one by one. It's fairly steady work on their part. This is clinical movement, and that's very rapid from Primus. You take them down one by one. Very smooth work. They seem very, very in control of that. But yeah, it's interesting to see how the Primus have changed their tactics to going for a slightly less aggressive, more controlled approach. But again, the tactics have to change throughout tournaments, depending very much on the opponents or what they've been through in the past, what has worked, what has not worked. Certainly, Primus found their rhythm with this. So straight into the next round. No time wasted. Again, a slow start and some fencing tactics coming in. That's a mistake on the part of the Northern Wolves fighter who charged in quite blindly, really. And that was easy to control on the part of the Primus fighters. A good charge coming in straight down in the corner. Very smooth work now. And they go from the control to the aggression straight away. Oh, that was very entertaining work from Primus. Very controlled start. And then with a sudden burst, gets straight in and get these big takedowns. Oh, I'll go away very happy with that. So we should now have Invicta and Iska.
Have you got that bottle of water? Did you get your biscuit? Yeah. Okay, let me watch you.
It still has to be said, the list has taken some punishment today, but it's still intact. And some of the supports are literally tree branches, as you can see on the lower left side. I don't think that branch was that shape when the tournament started. But even though there was a criticism about how flimsy the tabletop might have been, it certainly withstood all that it's taken so far, which is great news for them. Things are starting to split in certain places, but as a temporary solution, it's certainly done its job. One thing that will be good to see is the development of these tournaments at more medieval events in the United Kingdom. There are a few, but unfortunately they are open more to reenactment rather than sports tournaments. So, in fact, one thing we've seen largely in a number of countries is that because of people's perception of reenactment, we're stepping away from them. So going away from the events and more towards the sports tournaments, which of course is a shame because there's a lot to be gained from keeping themed tournaments within medieval festivals themselves or historical festivals. It does bring a lot of viewers. Anyway, now we have a great takedown there from Invicta and get right into it. Again, I mean, the Iska fighters have been very careful with their leg work and they're quite good at it themselves, but they're very aware where their legs can be susceptible to attack. And that is another Iska fighter down. That's an Invicta fighter gone. So this is impressive work from both teams, actually. So nice work, two fighters hauling each other into the corner. We've really got some of these big fighters remaining, and that's another Invicta fighter who has taken this fighter down. So it looks reasonably, even the Italian fighter, of course, has been taken down there. I think there's a big size difference between these two fighters, the Invicta and the Iska fighter. They're really going into each other, and it's just down 1-on-1. So this will end up as a pro fight. Oh, nice work. So again, pretty close. A couple of unforced errors, however. So there's some quite good footwork coming in from the Iska fighters. I think they've been studying a lot how to take care of it. What they need to do again is more gel as a team to ensure that once they've got locks on their opponent's legs, their support fighter is making the best of it and finding ways to down their opponents. We get underway again, and Iska charging into Invicta. They're really going for these takedowns. They're not managing it, however. That's impressive work by Invicta. So this is nice teamwork being shown. A lot of fighters going down quickly. They need to be careful about the pile of bodies there. And I think, yeah, that was okay in terms of the key points down. Very nice victory for Invicta. So the fighters have been counted. Rapid work from Invicta. So there will be a 5-minute break now. Don't go away. We'll be right back with you. The marshals called for a break. So 5 minutes, don't go away. So we get underway with Primus and White Company. This promises to be a very close fight. White Company for the first time using a pole arm. The teams very aggressive against each. Takedown there on the near side. White Company now with an advantage, striking very, very hard. A huge blow to the stomach. Really took the wind out of that Primus fighter with a huge blow to the stomach. You don't see that very often. Absolutely winded, that Primus fighter, who is still down, as you can see. Oh. Good fighting from both teams there. Sharp start from Primus. Know exactly what they've got to do against White Company. Start off very well and got a takedown. A very important takedown against the White Company fighter on the near side of the list. Far side, excuse me. So we get on towards the second round. And so already Company going in for some sharp strikes, but the Primus fighters have them covered. And this is good teamwork from Primus at the moment. However, there's one Primus fighter down from the halberdier of White Company, and the captain of Primus stalking the fighters, but he attacked himself, and the charge goes in to no effect. Another sharp takedown from White Company. Much more fluid in their movement this time. So, again, the Primus captain surrounded by White Company fighters there, but he's good in moving his body round. And the White Company fighters are trying to prize the way through, but the fight's been called already. So, again, a lot closer and something different in terms of tactics from White Company, but it paid off. And I think the pressure that was put on them by Primus, very effective. We come now to the final fight of the men's 5 versus 5, which will be Armoured Combat Gloucester against the Northern Wolves. Remember, the Northern Wolves with one fighter injured, which was the unfortunate incident with the helmet coming off earlier. And there was no strike that came into him, but he was already in a grapple. The helmets just seemed to pop off, though. More report from the marshal about the condition of the leather strap a little bit later. Now, ACG will be keen to get a victory here. They started off very, very strong. And again, really good speed on their part. But the difficulty is for them this time is that the Northern Wolves seem to have come right back into it. which I don't think anybody would have put money on, but my goodness, they demonstrated really good fighting skill in the last fight they had. So I think we're in for another close fight. Well, I say that, I might be completely wrong. So there's a bit more deliberation going on between the marshal and the captain of the Primus team. There may have been a warning there. There's going to be one or two today. And nothing too serious, of course. And the part of Invicta, there were a couple of late strikes that went in, but this is not uncommon. And I think when you're committed to a strike, it's hard to stop it. Of course, when there's that much adrenaline also. But nothing which has caused any major problems. A few verbal warnings, but nothing beyond that.
Good idea.
It's a shame not to see more foreign teams come in for this event, but again, of course, it's a difficult time to travel, not least because the UK airports seem to be in terrible condition at the moment. Awful delays, lack of staff. So, to be brutally honest, it's not a particularly appealing destination for not only fighters, but travelers in general. And that will hopefully change soon. And there'll be more international tournaments coming up. Marshall